Today's topic is the alcohol industry's dirty secret, how Big Boost spins drink responsibly while lobbying against health. And this is, I wouldn't say a part two, but it is an extension of last week's episode where we talked a little bit about the drink responsibly initiative, I guess, and how, we hear that a lot. And I'm getting distracted now because I'm trying to go back and find that episode, what the name of it was. And it's titled, Why One Drink a Day Might Be Too Much, the Truth Behind New Alcohol Guidelines. So we talked about how the federal government is going to release, and the health agencies is going to release new guidelines and how they used to encourage one drink a day or two drinks a day if you're a guy, and how that could, be healthy for you in some sense. And all that is changing. And the alcohol industry itself is lobbying, obviously, against that because it changes a lot of things for them, as well as their consumer, which is us, who buys alcohol, who drinks alcohol. So we're going to dive into that. I got a lot of good info and good points on that. But before we do that, really quick, and I usually don't do this, try to just keep it real simple. Go to the website if you're looking for resources other than joining our free community. But I have something exciting I want to officially announce. I've talked a little bit about it the last couple of episodes, but today's the official announcement. It's up. You can sign up. It's on the website, and it is our Sober October Accelerator. And I'm really, really excited about this. I've been wanting to do it for a couple of years now, and I finally was able to put everything together. And so Sober October is coming up. I'm sure you've heard about it. It's definitely popular now, popularized initially, probably, I think, by Joe Rogan in the Joe Rogan Experience. I know he had talked about it quite a few years ago, and it started to get pretty popular. But here's the thing. If you're thinking about quitting drinking, if you're thinking about leveling up your health, you want to get your edge back. You don't want to feel foggy. And you've been wanting to try, like, I just want to go 30 days without alcohol. I want to personally invite you to our Sober October Accelerator. This October 1st is the start date. And this is a group cohort. It's for high-performing dudes who want to better themselves. It's for dads. It's for business owners. It's for dudes who are ready to crush a 30-day break from alcohol and actually follow through with it too. And here's kind of the details of it real quick. You're going to get my 30-day quit drinking challenge. It's 30 daily podcasts to help keep you accountable. Those are accompanied by a workbook, by exercises to keep you accountable and dialed in, and actually doing the work as well too. And each podcast is only about 15 minutes, so it's not a huge time commitment each day, but it is a commitment. And that's what separates, I think, a lot of dudes from actually getting to 30 days is putting in the work. And I talk a lot about that in the coaching that I do, as well as the podcast, and even in our groups, and even in just conversations in general. But in addition to the 30-day quit drinking challenge, you're also going to get live group coaching and accountability with myself and other dudes who are going for a Sober October. You'll join just a special crew of guys who are just like you and who are dialed into our online community as well. And so we're going to meet for that live group coaching call every week on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. We're going to be doing 5 of those sessions, actually, because we're going to do an intro session first, and then we'll have the 4 official sessions during October after that. And here's the thing. Early registration is open right now. If you sign up before August 31st, that's the deadline for early registration, you're going to get $100 off when you use the promo code SOBEROCTOBER at checkout. So sign up now. There's limited spots available. I have to cap it at a certain amount because I don't want it to be overwhelming, like too many dudes in there. So we'll have a nice tight group. Once again, go to thatsoberguide.com. Click on the Sober October Accelerator. Use the promo code SOBEROCTOBER at checkout for $100 off. And man, let's lock it in. Let's do this together. Sober October. It's going to be a good time. So I hope to see you there and hope to meet you there. All right, let's dive into the show today. The alcohol industry's dirty secret: drink responsibly. You've probably heard that term before, and it's kind of a joke actually, and like you've probably heard it 1,000 times. But what if I told you, and you probably can get an idea about this anyway if you're listening to this, but what if I did tell you and you didn't know? Let's just say hypothetically, like big alcohol doesn't actually want you to drink responsibly. And, back when I was drinking, responsible meant to me not driving in a circle while puking in the driver's seat with the door open of my 1987 Toyota Camry, with expired tags, by the way, in a Dixon, California Safeway parking lot. Yes, that actually happened. I'm not proud of it. I can laugh about it today because I didn't, thank God, get in any trouble or hurt anybody or hurt myself that night. But that was, I made it home. And so that was responsible. I was good, and I just buried it back in there. There was a lot of instances like that. Drank too much and just took off and drove like an idiot. And I looked at that as responsible because I didn't get caught. I didn't hurt anybody. It was good. I'm not as bad as the next guy. That's not responsible drinking. And in fact, I'm not really sure what the definition of responsible drinking is. Maybe having one beer and catching a ride home in an Uber, or having a sober driver drive you home even after one beer. Maybe that would be considered responsible. I'm not sure what the statistics are in actually how many people do that. I'm sure there's definitely people who do, but I know there's a lot of people who don't, and I was one of them. That is for sure. Let me just give you a quick rundown too of what we're going to dive into today. Okay. The origin of drink responsible, right? We just talked about that, how the big booze and big alcohol industries manipulate the health narratives. And that's something we dove into a little bit last week, and we're going to go back into it this week. Why this all matters more than ever today, because it's just changing. The shift is on, and people are really waking up to it and feeling it and seeing it and experiencing it. And then, of course, always want to leave you guys with a call to action. What can you actually do about it? Like, what can you do about it? What can I do about it? What can we do about it collectively as this new sober movement really starts to and continues to take shape? So let's talk a little bit about the history and really the bullshit behind drink responsibly. Like, just think about the drink responsibly. Like, I don't know. I mean, I know maybe it's just me. But I feel like you either drink or you don't drink. You either drink or you don't. I don't really know that there's a drink responsibly. And what is the history of that? Like, who started it? That's something I thought of. Like, well, where did that come from? So the slogan, drink responsibly, it started popping up in the 1980s. So I want you to think about short nutter shorts with high socks and probably a lot of other substances in the 80s accompanying alcohol in those days. The 80s were a fun time. They were a different time. You had a lot of great bands out there in the 80s too. And that drink responsibly campaign started coming up in that era. And then it really gained traction in the 1990s, especially after there was quite a bit of public concern over drunk driving. That's when it started to become more mainstream, and people were talking about it, and people were realizing that, man, people are dying. People are getting hurt. People are really messing their families up and their lives up with these DUIs and driving under the influence and driving drunk. And that kind of bled into underage drinking, and then alcohol related harm. Like, what are the risks of drinking? All that stuff started to come out into the public, and these big companies weren't really able to put a lid on it like they had been before. And so some of those major alcohol companies, Anheuser-Busch, Heineken, I think it's Daigen, adopted it as part of their corporate social responsibility. We have some corporate responsibility here, so let's say drink responsibly. You can do it. It's sophisticated. And not because they care about your public health. They could give two shits about it. They care about the bottom line at the end of the day. But in order to, balance regulation, to sustain that good public image, and of course to stay ahead of lawsuits, that's a big one. they continued to push this narrative, drink responsibly. You can kind of think of it as a damage control PR tool. You know, if you're probably in some of those boardroom meetings, if you were a fly on the wall there, we're part of the solution. See, we told the people to drink responsible. Drink responsibly. I can't help that they got 6 DUIs and, you know, ruin their family and all these bad things happen because they don't know how to. We told them, and that was kind of it. That was kind of, I don't know why I go into that voice when I do that either, but I do. And so that was the 80s, that was the 90s, and that was a really big part of that campaign, drink responsibly. And I want to bring up like why that phrase is such a cop-out. It's so like, it doesn't make a lot of sense when you really dive into it and think about it. It's vague, and it's vague on purpose. Like responsible isn't even defined. What is responsible? That's why I said at the beginning, like, I don't really know what that means. Like, what does that mean? What is responsible drinking? Is that calling a cab or an Uber? Do people still call cabs? I don't know. I don't know if they do that anymore, but maybe if you're in a big city or something. But is that I mean, I guess you could consider that responsible. I can say that. I can agree with that. Okay, you drank. Maybe you drank a little more than you thought. Maybe it crept up on you. You didn't have lunch that day or dinner, and so you got a little more intoxicated than you thought. And instead of driving, you called someone to get a ride. I can understand that part of it. Okay, drink responsibly. But what about like the overall perspective? Is that one drink? Is that 2 drinks? Is that 3? Is that a case? Is that 6, cocktails at the bar, but then I called a cab, so I'm responsible? But you're not being responsible for your health, right? You're not being responsible for the decisions you make because you're intoxicated. So like what? Is like, as long as you don't drive a bus full of kids or like fly a plane with, a bunch of like people on it, like that's responsible. I didn't do that, so I'm responsible. My point to this is everyone has a different idea about this. It's not clear. It's very vague. Everyone has a different threshold as well for how much they can drink. What is an acceptable amount to drink? How often they drink? And the big industry loves that. They absolutely love it because they can keep moving the goalposts. They can keep moving them all around. They're never the same. So let me ask this. When you think about drink responsibly, okay, that's all I said. Why is there no mention of the health risks? Why is there no mention of cancer? Why is there no mention of mental health, of blackouts, of dependency, of DUIs, DUI-related deaths, domestic violence? Like I could go on, for a big list of things. Like why don't they mention any of that? No, it's just drink responsible. Hey man, keep it together. Like just, do your best. And unfortunately, like alcohol is one of the leading substances for people to make terrible decisions that cost lives, and they cost money, and they cost family and relationships and jobs and health. And there's a lot there. And so just to say drink responsible, man, it's a little too vague. It's kind of like saying like, hey, text responsibly while you drive. Like I'm not saying I've never sent a text while I was like at a stoplight or something. I try not to. And so I get it. Like it's not about perfection either. I'm not trying to say, hey, you need to be like, I get it. Don't do that. Definitely don't do that. I'm trying not to do that. But like, I'm literally think about driving down the road and telling somebody text responsibly while driving. Like you're still encouraging the behavior. You're just hoping that they don't get in an accident or something. It's kind of the same thing. Like drink responsibly. It's too vague. It's too vague. Okay. So here's why else it's a total cop-out. It's deflective. It shifts the blame. Like the underlying message is, if you get arrested, if you get addicted, if you black out, if you crash your car, well, that's your fault. We told you, be responsible. Like, do you see like how that Like it turns alcohol harm into like a personal failure rather than an overall cultural issue, a systematic issue, a big industry, a profit driven $1 billion marketing and social normalization initiatives. The normalcy bias of it. It puts it back on, hey, we said drink responsible. It's not our fault that, you hurt someone driving, or that you got your third DUI, or that your wife left you and your kids left you because you're an asshole because you drink too much. The mirror, and this really mirrors what Big Tobacco did. They never deny this. See how they get tricky here, and the enemy is tricky. Okay, the enemy is tricky. He creates doubt. He creates confusion. And Big Tobacco kind of did the same thing. They never denied the danger. They just told you to make a choice. And so, although I am about freedom and personal responsibility and making decisions and making your own choices, I want to be very clear. I'm not saying that it's all their fault, because we do have to make our own choices. God gave us brains to use. He gave us the opportunity to make our own decisions, and those decisions that we make shape our lives. So there is a piece of this that is on us, that is on the person. But that said, when we are conditioned in a certain way to believe that certain habits and certain things are normal, and that they're normalized, and that they're very selectively, what's the word I'm looking for? Selectively pushed upon us. We'll just say that. I was looking for something cooler, I think, but it's not coming to me. But my point is that we have been conditioned, and we've been conditioned through movies, through music, as kids, by people we see, even our loved ones sometimes, that are doing that. And they've been conditioned, and it's a whole domino effect. And the marketing behind this, that's what I was looking for, is the subliminal messaging, the subconscious messaging that gets implanted into our minds, and we don't even know it. And that part of it is the other half to our own personal responsibility to make that choice. And it can be very difficult, especially for somebody who's going through different things in life, trying to deal with it all, trying to understand it, trying to understand self. And it's a trap. And so and the third thing here too, and I'll be quick with this one so we can keep moving forward, but it's also a cop out because it's a PR shield against real regulation. So whenever like governments want to introduce stricter warning labels, or they want to do a public health campaign, or they want to do a tax on alcohol, or they want to put limits on advertising. Like you can't advertise to this because there's too many of this age group that are underage minors that are going to see this. Like, just a couple examples. But the industry points back to their responsible messaging. Drink responsibly, as proof that they've already done their part. Oh, we told the people. We told the people to drink responsibly. Do it responsible. Be a responsible alcoholic. You better be a responsible drunk, damn it. I don't mean to laugh at it, but it's like when you say it, it's pretty ridiculous, actually. So they claim, hey, they are already giving those messaging. They're already supporting the people by telling them to drink responsible. It kind of becomes like their get out of jail free card in a sense. And so what are some examples from the big booze, big alcohol ads? I just wanted to give you a couple of those. Budweiser, right? No one to say when. Remember that one? No one to say when. It's catchy, but it really says nothing about what or why. It's literally like a sentence, fragment of a sentence at that. Or Heineken, enjoy responsibly. And I want you to think about that commercial. I can remember bits and pieces of it. It was like a party. It was kind of like the lighting was cool. It had good looking people in it, had a DJ. as if like moderation is this cool, like just, hey, we're good, man. We're just partying down. Enjoy responsibly. The majority of people don't enjoy responsibly. You ever been to one of those parties? There's some, don't get me wrong. Not saying they're not out there. But the point is on the overall perspective, the subliminalness of the marketing behind that enjoy responsibly. It's very confusing. It's confusing even talking about it too. My brain goes, wait, because those have been implanted years ago for a lot of us. The fine print too, it often says, don't drink and drive, which is just like the bare minimum legal obligation that the companies have, but not a real message about like what actually happens to people with their health, with their jail, death, institutions, DUIs, hurting. Like, I mean, gosh, there's so much, but they don't talk about that. Just like drink responsibly. Don't drink and drive. Like, imagine this. What if cocaine was like legal and they're like, please snort responsibly. I'll tell you one thing. I was not a responsible snorter back in the day. I can tell you that. That is for sure. It's like McDonald's saying like, eat a salad sometimes. Sure, Karen, right after I smash this 20 piece. Like, damn. You would laugh if you saw that. If McDonald's really did an ad like that, you just thought like it would probably be pretty funny, actually. It's the same thing. But it does come back to that personal choice too. I get that. But a lot of the time we're so overloaded with the marketing and the messaging and the subliminal, messaging that the subconscious doesn't even know, but it downloads. The mind is so powerful. We don't even know. And, do that for 20 years. So I just want to make sure that I'm not taking out the personal responsibility piece of this, because I am very big on that. We don't play the victim. You can't play the victim. We're not the victim here, but we're empowered. We're empowered by consciousness, by a purpose, by logic, by thinking, by being critical thinkers, by questioning everything. That is what makes us powerful, not victims. And that's kind of what I'm getting at here, because it's a slippery, slope here. You could argue, I'm sure anyone could argue the other side of this, and they might sound like they had some good points. They might have some good points. So what about behind the curtain? How do these big companies protect their billions? And let's start with who really pulls the strings, if you want to say. The alcohol industry isn't just breweries and distilleries. It's a well-oiled lobbying machine, and they definitely play the long game. So we're talking different groups, right? Different groups. These groups aren't public health advocates. They're literal corporate defense teams who have a ton of money, whose mission is to protect sales and not people. They want to protect sales, not people. And so funding research, that's a big one, right? Let's start with that one first. Like what is the details of that? So big alcohol often funds studies that blur the lines between moderate drinking and supposed health benefits. And here's an example of this. I'm sure you've heard this. We talked about it last week. 1 glass of red wine a day is good for your heart. Like, that shit was pushed for decades. Guess who funded that, quote, science behind that? The industry did. The alcohol industry funded that science. In 2018, a $100 million NIH study on alcohol's health benefits was shut down when it was revealed that big alcohol business helped design and fund it. So I want to give you one piece of advice here. I don't know if it's advice, but one thing I always try to follow. If you ever want the truth about something and you're digging, and this isn't just for alcohol, this could be for whatever, maybe pandemics that we went through, maybe different events that have happened around the country that we see happening more and more and more. Maybe the drug industries, pharmaceutical industries. Follow the money. If you follow the money, you will eventually find the truth. They pay researchers. They pay influencers, journals. They cherry pick data to spin the narrative. And it's really unfortunate. It's really unfortunate some of the things that we have to live with in this, the dishonesty and the narratives and the psychological warfare on people. It really is. And so I guess my point to this too is just question everything. Question me. Don't believe me. Go look it up for yourself. Do a little homework. Start looking into this industry. Start looking into who funds the studies. Start looking into who came up with Drink Responsibly. Start looking into why they're pushing an $11 billion non-alcoholic portion of their business now too, because they know they're losing out, projected to be 30 billion, I think, in 2030. It's crazy. And then you get into the lobbying part of this, the lobbying to block warning labels, the lobbying to lower guidelines. I don't know if you know this is something that I've learned as of recently too. In other countries, alcohol comes with clear cancer warnings and limits on the bottles or on the packaging, but not in the US. Why? Because lobbyists, because big industry, they fight it. They have huge corporate defense teams. Like I mentioned, they fight it hard. Every time the US dietary guidelines come up for review, just like we talked about last week, lobbyists swarm through Washington to make sure that nobody lowers the safe limit, those recommendations, 1 for women and 2 a day for men. They don't want visual labels like we have on cigarettes. They don't want language or labels or warnings about cancer. They're sure as shit not going to give you labels about driving intoxicated and the repercussions that could have on somebody. They're surely not going to give you the lethargic that you feel, that the effects of alcohol, the after effects. They're going to give you the party. They're going to give you that scene. It's a good time, the game. Our major corporate sponsors for professional sport. And I love professional sports. I love watching them. I remember the first time, though, I had to go to an A's game and not drink. I got to, thank God. But I remember that. I think Seth and I actually did a podcast on the way there on this little tiny shitty recorder. The audio quality is probably terrible. I don't know. Go back. It's probably between episodes 30 and 60 maybe. I don't remember. But it was the first time that I went to a baseball game as an adult, of course. Went to a lot when I was a kid and didn't drink, but it was the first time I went to an A's game, a professional MLB game, and didn't drink. And it was hard, but I was proud of that too, and it gave me a whole new perspective. And once you do that, you start to recognize the marketing behind it and the subconscious drops that infiltrate, that you see, that you don't even know you see, that you don't even know you're aware of. And what does that do in the long term for somebody who drinks for a long time? It disconnects them from reality. It disconnects them from God. It disconnects them from their family. It disconnects them from self. Over time, it progresses. It's real. I talk to dudes about it all the time. I hear about it all the time. I experienced it myself. So I'm not just talking out of my ass, although that would be funny. Just thought of Ace Ventura. Excuse me. I'd like to ask you a few questions. Oh, man. But the industry doesn't want you to stop drinking, okay? They want you to drink just enough to still show up to work on Monday because they want you to be a good tax asset. Be a good tax asset. Make us some money. And just escape. Don't live a life full of purpose and consciousness, connected to God, taking care of your family, and leading like a fucking man. Excuse me. A little fired up there, but it's true. It's true. And what about fighting the non-alcoholic alternatives? Like you'd think that the rise of NA beers and, NA drinks would be a big win-win, right? But some major alcohol industry, like some parts of it, they see it as a huge threat. In some countries, like traditional alcohol lobbyists have tried to block NA products from being sold. They've tried to ban terms like beer or wine on NA labels because they don't want to dilute the traditional business of beer and wine, of alcohol. They want to slow the growth of the sober curious or the sobriety or the recovery or whatever label you want to put on it, market people who don't want to freaking drink anymore because it sucks. Like alcohol sucks, period. It just does. Like there's not anything that good that comes over it over a long period of time. You might get a short escape and you might have some short-term fun with it. I'd be a liar if back in the day I said that there wasn't certain instances, but unfortunately over the long term, there's no benefits to it. There's just not. And as we get older, we start to realize that we go, man, all that shit that was sold to me, for me through MTV, through music, through movies, and Ed Lattimore and I talked about the booze psyop. It's literally a psyop on your mind, literally a booze psyop to keep you trapped, disconnected, disillusioned. Man, it's crazy. I'm fired up today. I love it. It's good to get fired up sometimes. Man, it's good to get a little angry sometimes, a little hot sometimes. Make sure you know how to reel it in. I'm not going to let it ruin my day or anything because I got purpose in this life. But isn't that crazy? They don't even want to support, and that's not everybody, by the way. Like I said, the NA business is growing like crazy. So there's a lot of, I think that's shifting is my point. But I can guarantee you back in the day, there was a reason why you only saw O'Doul's on the show. You remember O'Doul's? That was the only NA beer you ever used to see back in the day. That was it. That was like your American Legion coach who had a drinking problem. He drank O'Doul's after a while because that was all there was. That's all you saw, or your grandpa or something. He went sober, started going to AA. He drank an O'Doul's every now and again. There wasn't all this other shit out there that you see today. It wasn't there. But that's the shift. That's the change. Because I want you to think of this, and the alcohol industry knows this. If too many people woke up tomorrow and said, hey, you know what? I feel really good without this alcohol in my system. Think about that. That is billions of dollars in losses, billions with a B, if everybody got sober and everyone said, fuck that. I'm not drinking that shit anymore. Like, they would lose. And so, of course, they're going to continue to pound that down our throats. And if they can't, they're going to create an NA market so they still can recover that profit in there. And so at the end of the day, what's the bottom line? And at the end of the day, if we want to know the truth about something, what do we follow? We follow the money. It's like Coke getting mad that you chose water over like Coca-Cola. Same thing. Like, oh man, they're going to choose NA beer. I was like, oh man, they're drinking water now. So let's talk about some of the 2025 U.S. dietary guidelines. And I'm going to be short and sweet on this just because we did talk about some of this last week. But if you want to hear more, go back and listen to it. Okay. It is pretty interesting stuff. But the USDA, the health services, they're going over alcohol consumption guidelines in 2025. And these new evidence suggests that 2 drinks per day for men, which has been the standard for a long time, it could be lowered to 1 or even 0 for optimal health. I highly doubt they're going to put it down to 0. I bet you they're going to do it in the middle. So if I had to put money on it, that's what I would say. They're going to change it to 1 for men and maybe either keep it 1 for women or like a half for women. They're going to lower it so they can look like they are still doing something, but it's not going to have the impact that it would if you just zeroed it out on the industry, because they're all in bed together. Everybody knows that. They're all in this shit together. Bottom lines. but it should be 0 for optimal health because that makes sense, right? I mean, that's logical sense. Like no alcohol equals better health, not 1 a day or 2 a day. That's just stupid. But they're hiring the lobbyists. They're funding I put it in quotes, the independent research. They're running subtle ad campaigns to normalize moderate drinking. We're just going to moderate. And I'll say there is, I'm not trying to say that there's not people that do that. There is. But unfortunately, where I come from and the shit that I've been through and the shit that I continue to see through my family that I love, friends that I love, guys that I work with, guys that are in our groups, like it's just, and you can tell why I'm fired up today. I'm just so tired of it. I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of the impact that it has on so many people out there and so many families and so many men who are really good men, but they really struggle with this shit. And I know my mouth is bad today, and it has been a little bit. I think I'm a little fired up over this stuff. I think I have been, and sometimes I hold back, to be honest, because I want to be respectable, and I'm still respectable. But sometimes you got to just get after it, and maybe it's time. But the drink moderately, the drink responsibly, man. I just, when you hear that phrase again, or you see a study claiming that alcohol helps your heart, just remember, it's not always about truth. It's about sales at the end of the day. Okay. And behind that glossy ad is a sweaty ass boardroom of men and women trying to keep you drinking. And they're just, that's it. That's what they're trying to do. And they're trying to have you drink just enough so you show up for work on Monday, like I said earlier, to keep that revenue stream rolling. So here's some of the real impacts, the health impacts that they don't want you to know. And here's a list. And I'm not going to go into any of these except the last one because I thought this one was really important and I don't think enough people talk about it. And then I'll give you some actionable takeaways and then we'll wrap up today. I appreciate you guys tuning in to That Sober Guy podcast. Okay, the real health impacts they don't want you to know. Alcohol, we talked about this one last week, is a group 1 carcinogen. It's in the same class as tobacco and get this, asbestos. I think I said last week, like it's like standing in a room full of asbestos and going, I'm just going to take a couple big breaths here, like one drink. And like I said, it's not exactly the same, but it's similar. It's also linked, alcohol, to at least seven cancers. There's no safe amount. Even one drink a day raises health risks, despite what they've told us for so long. Not to mention the legal trouble, not to mention the bad decisions you make, not to mention the potential DUIs that could hurt, kill somebody or maim somebody, hurt somebody's family, and also they're expensive at that, not to mention the jail time for stupid decisions. Maybe it's fights or maybe it's this next one, and this is the last one I want to dive into a little bit. What about domestic violence and abuse, and particularly against women? What about that? Do they ever talk about that? Do they ever talk about that 40% to 60% of domestic violence incidents involved alcohol use by the person perpetrating that crime? They don't talk about that. In homes where domestic violence occurs, substance abuse is present in 50 to 75% of the cases. Can you believe that? You want to know how I know that? Because I experienced it as a kid. And this isn't a poor me moment, but it was real shit. Like it was real in my house growing up. Like substance abuse, domestic violence. I'm not shitting on my mom or my dad today. Like they did the best they could. And particularly my father, like he had a rough bout with it. And man, it's the demon in a bottle, man. And it messes people up. He's got a great heart and he loves me and he loves our family. And, that's a whole different side of this that I've had to do a lot of work through, but it's real. And it was jacked up in our house growing up a lot. We had a lot of good times too. We took some trips and some vacations, but you never knew when shit was going to pop off. And it was always because of alcohol. In every single case I can think of, that always played a role in it. And it's no surprise to me that substance abuse is present in 50 to 75% of cases where domestic violence occurs. Why don't the big alcohol companies talk about that? Why don't they have an ad about that? They don't. So how does it fuel domestic violence? Well, let's get into that real quick. Lowers inhibitions. Alcohol impairs judgment and self-control. It makes it easier for someone to lash out in anger or frustration. You ever been there? You ever been drunk and pissed off and got in a fight or said some dumb stuff to somebody that, that they didn't appreciate, and then maybe not even remember it the next day? That sounds healthy. Have another drink. It doesn't create create abusive tendencies. Like it doesn't create them in particular. Like it's not the alone standing reason, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It doesn't create, but it amplifies them. It amplifies them extremely loud in a lot of cases. It escalates aggression as well. Alcohol affects brain chemistry, particularly in areas tied to impulse control and aggression. You get aggressive. They say that it's that liquor courage. Oh, he got that liquor courage. Got that liquor courage, man. He's loud. Oh, man, he's feeling confident. You ever heard that? Have you ever been through it? You ever experienced it? Studies show intoxicated individuals are more likely to misrepresent cues and respond with violence. Misinterpret cues. They're more likely to misinterpret cues and respond with violence instead of being rational and level-headed and responding instead of reacting. You don't do that when you're intoxicated because you're intoxicated. It's poison. It literally brings the devil out in you. Not in everybody, but in certain instances. And I've shared this before. I had a buddy of mine, I won't say his name. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but I think he's sober today. He's a great dude, man. Great dude when he was sober. Give you the shirt off of his back. Really good friend. Talk to him, hang out with him. He'd help. If you need help moving a couch, he'd be the first one there. One of those guys. As soon as he started drinking, he was the biggest asshole. I couldn't even hang with him for 10 minutes. Couldn't stand him for 10 minutes. He was annoying. He wanted to fight, wanted to argue. Great example of it right there. And it affects people differently on different levels. Some people are really happy. People are, they're not always angry. But I can guarantee you that almost anyone who's had somewhat of a long drinking career has had bouts of rage, fits of anger, frustration, arguments, fights while drinking at some point in their career, because that's what that stuff brings out. It also provides a very convenient excuse. Many domestic abusers blame alcohol to avoid accountability. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't even know what I was drunk. I was drunk, man. Yeah, I didn't even know. Yeah, sorry. Not really, but victims may also rationalize abuse because the partner was intoxicated. How many times have you heard of somebody who stayed with another person because, they rationalize, oh man, well, he's got a drinking problem and I love him. Love him so much. Even though he beats the shit out of her. Come on. Come on. And then it traps victims in the cycle. Alcohol often plays a role in coercive control, isolation, and even, get this one, financial abuse. My phone's going crazy right now. Let me reread that real quick. Alcohol often plays a role in coercive control, isolation, and financial abuse. The control thing is crazy. The coercion. And then victims may also self-medicate with alcohol, making it even harder to leave the relationship. So I want to be sure that I point out, not everyone who drinks becomes violent, okay? But those numbers don't lie. And this is, it has an impact. It had an impact on me. It had an impact on many others out there, and it probably has an impact on some of you listening to this right now who've either experienced it firsthand or someone who experienced it firsthand. Emergency rooms, I thought this one was interesting. Emergency rooms and police departments consistently report a strong correlation between alcohol and domestic violence calls. Children in homes with alcohol-fueled domestic abuse are at greater risk of long-term trauma, addiction, and repeating the cycle of addiction of alcoholism. I mean, what is good about this shit? What is good about it? There's nothing good about, like, I don't see a lot of good that we're talking about today. And I know that some people, oh, he's going to the extreme, and this is real. This is real. I often don't talk about this stuff and like this type of stuff, but I think it's good. We have to have these conversations. We have to bring this stuff to the top. Someone's got to talk about it. Somebody's got to do it. Alcohol doesn't cause somebody to be abusive, okay? But in homes where violence and control are already an issue, where there's trauma related from past, where there's instability, where there's financial stress, where there's family stress, where there's work. I mean, just go down the list of things. Alcohol is often, they would say, the match that lights the fuse. So where do we go from here? Like, what does that look? Well, number one, we have to start having these conversations. That's the first part. We have to start educating ourselves, our other people. We have to start talking about it. So I'll continue to do the podcast. But what do we do about all this? Why don't the big alcohol companies tell us this shit? Like, why don't they tell us that 40 to 60% of domestic violence incidents involve their product? I'll just leave that there. What can we do about it? Acknowledge how frustrating it is that we've been sold this lie. Like we haven't been told the full truth, and we have been manipulated into believing that it's normal to have a drink every day. That's not normal. But there's power in awareness. Awareness equals leverage, and sobriety equals clarity. And there is this sober momentum building. You can feel it. You can see it. So I want to invite you to awaken with me in this as we wrap up. Here's a couple things we can do. Start questioning the messaging that you see. When you're watching like football, we got baseball on right now. Playoffs will be here before you know it. Football season's starting. If you haven't boycotted those yet, or maybe you're like me, you did for a while, and then you're like, man, I really love baseball. And you came back and started, I admit it. But I get it at the same time. I'm not, what's the quote? I think it was a Juvenile quote. Not Juvenile the rapper either. I think he was a philosopher from the Roman days, but he said, give them bread and circuses and they will never revolt. And a lot of people look at that, in today's world as sports or entertainment. And I get that. And so I think it's very important to be conscious of that and know that this is entertainment and know that it can be a distraction if we let it. And understand like that there's a lot of big marketing pushes behind it all too. And alcohol is a big one. And some of these sports, even if you love sports. So what I'm getting at here though is be aware, be awake to that messaging. Start to look for it, look through it, look at it through a different set of eyes, especially if you've just gone through this whole podcast with me. When you start seeing those ads, when you start seeing the logos, the signs, the actors and the athletes that they use to promote it, they're all actors at the end of the day. Come on, we all know that. It's all a big act. It's a bunch of BS. But start to look at it. Start to talk about it too. Start to talk about it. I would love if you shared this episode with a friend who's still buying into the moderation myth or the idea that a drink a day is normal or the idea that it's just sports and getting hammered. That's the purpose in life. Send this to them. Tell them, hey, check this out. Might piss them off, but hey, you never know. Maybe you'll wake somebody up too. And then support brands that support you. Support brands that support you. Try to do that the best you can. I know it's hard. I know it's impossible to do it 100% perfect. It just is, but you can really make a dedicated effort to do so. And I know Jess and I do. We try to support brands that we believe in and that, we have certain guidelines and morals and, things that we align with. I guess that's the word I'm looking for. And it's not perfect. It's not. But, we do the best we can, and you have a choice in that. So let's recap real quick. Drink responsibly is marketing BS. Big alcohol is actively fighting health forward change. You're not crazy for questioning the narrative either. Like, use the brain God gave you, question. And if you're ready to break away from this stuff and take control of your health, like, do it now. Do it today. We have a lot of great resources at thatsoberguy.com. One of the best ones is our free Sober Victory Circle men's community. Check that out. I appreciate you guys tuning in today. Thank you for being a part of my life, my recovery, my sobriety, the podcast. This isn't I just want to mention, this isn't about like putting anybody down or trying to shame anybody or kind of putting the big companies down. I get that, but that's fine. I'm talking about people in general. It's about awareness. It's about trying to bring awareness, about trying to have these type of conversations, about trying to find freedom from some of this stuff. So share this episode. Don't fall for it. Be awakened. Open the eyes up. Think about it. Thanks for tuning into That Sober Guy podcast. Don't forget to share it. Take care. God bless. Keep your blood clean.